The wide world of DACs is a never-ending competition among manufacturers to release as many DACs as humanly possible within the shortest amount of time. There is no winner. There's no loser. There is simply an unending avalanche of DACs. The portable DAC market is not spared from this ceaseless cascade of products. Some of these products turn out to be unique, such as the Low-2 PAW S1 or the Creative Super XFI amp. Others are just rehashed dongle DACs. Ikko makes one of my most recommended portable DACs, the Ikko Zerta ITM03. This little product has got a powerful amp for most headphones, good build, easy connectivity, and an optical output if you need it. For about $100, the ITM03 is a good product. Recently, Ikko released their newest and so far cheapest DAC. It is the ITM01. This costs about $60. The folks at Audio 46 sent me the ITM01 to review. I've purchased several pricey headphones from Audio 46 in the past and can recommend this company as a reputable dealer in hi-fi gear. They've been around for about 8 years. Best of all, Audio 46 tends to have regular sales, which I try to take advantage of from time to time. So, is the ITM01 a worthy entry into the sub-$100 DAC market? The ITM01 is a fairly large dongle DAC, larger than the current trend of similar products. It's about as long as the AudioQuest Dragonfly USB DACs without the cable attached. It's wider than the Low-2 PAW S1. The 01 is made of metal and some plastic. The device itself is fairly simple. There's a 3.5mm headphone jack on one end and a proprietary magnetic cable attachment at the other. On top, the 01 has playback controls. These buttons require a bit of force to activate, which might be a very good thing. If you use this device attached to your phone and put both in your pocket, accidental clicks of the buttons are less likely to occur. The 01 comes very well accessorized. You get two cables. There's a short cable and a far longer braided cable. For the short cable, you can choose between Apple Lightning or standard USB connection depending on which one you buy from the store. The longer braided cable has only USB-A connection, at least as far as I know. These cables have a proprietary attachment mechanism. Ikko does not list replacement cables on their website. I assume you can get replacement cables if you need them by contacting the customer service department. The cable itself attaches with magnets, and boy, it is a strong connection. You have to put some force into pulling the two pieces apart, so accidental detachment will not be an issue. There's a plastic ring that runs the circumference of the device. There are LEDs on either side of the device under this plastic. There are 3 different light indications for the 3 different device modes. Lemon yellow is for music mode, light blue is for movie mode, and purple is for game mode, but it doesn't really show up as purple in the video. You select modes by holding down the center button for about 3 seconds. We will talk about the modes later. The 01 uses the ESS9298 DAC. I checked online for Saber's product specifications for this particular DAC chip, and I could not find it. Nor could I find any other product that uses the 9298. I can only surmise that this was a DAC that Saber, for one reason or another, did not market. While I cannot check Saber's product sheet because I can't find it, Ikko does provide some information about the DAC's capabilities. Ikko says that the 9298 supports multi-system compatibility. They claim that the ITM01 can be attached to game consoles, mobile devices, and computers. The 01 is plug-and-play without need to install drivers. The 01 renders PCM audio up to 32 bits at 384 kHz and also supports DSD128. There's no MQA. At least that's what some of the product pages say. The manual says that the ITM01 supports only up to 16-bit PCM. I contacted Ikko about this and they confirmed that the 01 supports 32-bit PCM. The ITM01 activates once you plug your headphones into it. So when you first connect the 01 to your device, it will not show up as an audio device. You will need to connect your headphones or IEMs, and then the 01 will turn on and your source device will immediately recognize it. Overall, the ITM01 seems to be well built, has useful controls, and comes with good accessories. While I'm a bit skeptical of the proprietary connection system, it appears to be fairly sturdy. I just do not understand why it had to be done. Since the ITM01 uses an unknown DAC chip, the ESS9298, I was curious to find out how it is tuned. Ikko does not say what the sound signature is supposed to be, and since I could not find any mention of this DAC online, there's no way for me to know how others have experienced it. So, I listened to the 01 for several days using various devices, including my LG V30, my PC, laptop, and Mac. I used my Allo Audio S4X, Avantone Planar, Bear Dynamic DT1990, and Moondrop Quarks. I played my standard test playlist on Amazon Music HD. I also casually listened to countless songs from a variety of genres, including pop, rock, jazz, acoustic, classical, ambience, and orchestral. I also compared the ITM01 to two other products that are neutral. Namely, I used the ITM03 and the Low-2-PAW S1. The S1 has a number of EQ presets, but I kept the EQ off for these tests. I set the ITM01 to its default music mode setting. I used Voicemeeter Banana to run audio to two DACs at once. I connected a passive AB switch to both devices, the ITM01 and to one of the comparison DACs, and listened for any alterations in the sound signatures. I, of course, volume matched the DACs through Voicemeeter Banana. I listened intently and can say that there are some minute differences on the ITM01 when compared to some other devices, but it's not night and day, and these alterations could be easily overlooked if you're not paying extremely close attention. When comparing the ITM03 and the 01, they appear to have slight emphasis differences in the bass. This was particularly in the mid-bass. The 01 typically had slightly harder mid-bass impact. Mids are ever so more forward on the 01. Vocals appear to have slightly more clarity on the 01. Vocal grain and sibilance appear to be marginally more obvious on the 01. Treble, however, seem to be identical in pitch. The 01 seemed to separate treble instruments marginally more. When I compared the ITM01 to the Low-2-PAW S1, I perceived very little difference overall. Perhaps, I thought, the S1 might be marginally clearer than the 01, but this was really inconsistent. Bass impact and clarity was the same, mid's response was also indistinguishable, treble response was identical. These tests indicate to me that the ITM01 has a neutral tuning. When there are minor differences between it and the ITM03, the 01 has little to no audible difference in sound when compared to the Low-2-PAW S1. Moreover, even the minor differences I heard between the two Ikko products were so small that there's little point in making too much out of it. I know there are some who believe that every single DAC on the market has different tuning, that every single DAC sounds different, but I don't agree. In fact, I completely disagree. I listen to and use more DACs than the vast majority of people who comment about such matters. I do actual A/B tests. From my experience, DACs fall into three broad categories. Either they are warm, or neutral, or analytical. Warm-sounding DACs are very hard to find. Nobody really is making them except for hifi, and even then, their sound signature is not a significant deviation from neutral. Analytical-sounding DACs do exist. The Monolith THX Portable and THX Desktop, along with the Earman TR Amp, are three obvious examples. But the vast majority of DACs have neutral tuning. Sometimes there are slight variations within a group set. For example, both the Dragonfly Red and Chord Mojo are warm-sounding, but they do not sound identical. The ITM01 and ITM03 are neutral, but there are slight differences. The problem is that on those rare occasions when tuning is audibly different, some people blow those minute alterations way out of proportion. A DAC that might marginally accentuate bass and mids will all of a sudden become to some people the best and poetically amazing. While they are entitled to feel that way, the reality is that actual differences are few and far between, and typically not significant within a given group set. So, if you are looking for a neutral-sounding DAC, the ITM01 is as good as the ITM03, which is as good as the Low-2-PAW S1. Forget about the silly little sometimes audible differences that you might or might not be able to hear. Consider instead the price points and features such devices offer. Those factors are far more relevant, immediate, and commonsensical. The ITM01 has 3 audio modes: music, game, and movie. You switch between them by holding down the center button for a few seconds. Ikko does not explain what these modes are supposed to do. These are, from what I can tell, just EQ presets. The music mode is neutral tuning, as we've discussed previously. The game mode is a significant bass and treble boost. Sub-bass and mid-bass receive a noticeable amount of emphasis. Within this mode, bass becomes less clear and there is greater melding between sub-bass and mid-bass. Treble receives less of an emphasis in comparison, but there does seem to be a kick in the mid-treble region. Clarity throughout the frequency range becomes less obvious when compared to the neutral music mode. The movie mode seems to reduce bass compared to the neutral tuning. There appears to be a slight sub-bass roll-off. I could be wrong, but I thought that the treble was marginally reduced. I do not think clarity changed much. What seemed fairly obvious was that the movie mode made everything sound a little smoother. Bass impact was a little blunted, the mids were recessed and vocal grain reduced, and treble a bit gentler. There are a few takeaways here. First, I am very glad to hear differences among the modes. You should experience something similar. Second, the modes are basically EQ presets. They are heavy-handed. For example, if you want more bass, the game mode will give you plenty of obvious bass boost, and this is very different from the type of bass boost that IFI uses in their products. I've said for a long time that IFI uses bass boost that is more restrained than other products, yet it's still useful. IFI adds just enough for you to hear, but not so much that it drowns out the mids. The ITM01 also does not drown out the mids, but its bass boost is a big departure from IFI's lighter touch. I think the modes are misnamed. I'm not convinced they actually describe what they are intended for. You may, for example, find that the game mode is less useful to you than music mode when playing games, or you may feel that the game mode has a more cinematic experience than the movie mode. Overall, it's really quite nice to see some EQ presets included within this price range. You may hate them, but that's true for any preset. While using the ITM01, I tried numerous headphones of various impedances. This included the Allo Audio S4X, Austrian Audio Hi-X65, Beyerdynamic DT1990 and T1, and the Sennheiser HD6XX. I also listened to the Avantone Planar and the audeze LCD2 Classic. Let's be perfectly honest. Do not buy the ITM01 thinking that it will be a cheap amplifier for your planars. It isn't. It is not intended for that purpose. Planar magnetic headphones require a lot more power than typical dynamic drivers. While the 01 will get planar magnetic headphones loud, the drivers will not perform at peak. If that is important to you, then don't buy the 01 for that scenario alone. Now, with dynamic drivers, the ITM01 does perfectly well. You will have no trouble at all using the 32 ohm headphones in your collection. In fact, the 300 ohm HD6XX gets abundant power and gets overwhelmingly loud on the 01. Even the 600 ohm Beyerdynamic T1 receives plenty of power for loud performance, though I have to say that the T1 tends to have more clarity and smoother mids presentation with more power than what the 01 can provide. Ikko provides some information about the power output of the ITM01. On their website, they say that the 01 has 2 VRMS at 32 ohms. In the manual, they say that the device outputs 125 milliwatts into 32 ohms. This is, I think, plenty of power for most applications. By the way, Ikko says that the ITM01's output impedance is less than 0.8 ohms. This means you can use literally any headphone and IEM without concern about the impedance rule of eighths. You can find a lot of dongle DACs in the market. A lot seem to offer very little. They might be within your price range, but unless they present some unique features, you're likely picking among nearly identical devices. I think Ikko did a fantastic job with the original ITM03. I regularly recommend that product to those who want a neutral portable amp DAC. Its performance is nothing to scoff at, and while it may not be feature-rich, it does offer at least one unique attribute missing from other options: the ability for optical output. Other products like the Direct Atom 2 are good alternatives for those who want a miniature product that provides neutral, clean signature and MQA. And of course, if you want to spend a bit more money, then something like the low-2 PAW S1 might be a good option. The S1 has numerous EQ presets, balanced output, a sturdy build, and easy connectivity. Among all of these various options, is the ITM01 relevant or a few years late to the party? This brings us to value. My initial concern about the 01 was that it would just be another typical amp DAC providing an unassuming sound signature, typical audio resolution support, and nothing more. But the 01 ended up surprising me. The 01 supports every form of high-resolution audio the vast majority of audiophiles will ever use. 24-bit PCM is where most audiophiles, I think, should draw the line, and to be perfectly honest, going to higher resolutions does not provide material, if any, differences. It's just a waste of storage, time, and money. The 01 has useful physical controls. You may never want to use them, but when you do, you'll probably be happy that they were included. The 01's power output is plentiful for the vast majority of headphones and IEMs. The 01's audio modes are, well, they're just EQ presets. All three sound different from each other. While I'm not convinced their names are appropriate, their implementation at least is useful. The 01 has sturdy build. It's a bit on the larger side, but it's hardly something to complain about. The one issue with the build is, I think, the proprietary cable. I'm not a fan of proprietary cables on headphones, IEMs, computers, phones, or DACs. While I can appreciate the convenience of switching cables, the fact that Ikko does not openly sell replacements begs the question why they even had the proprietary system to begin with. Frankly, USB-C implementation would have been far better, just like with the PAW S1. When I take everything into consideration, I can easily conclude that the ITM01 is in fact value. For about $60, you get a lot for your money: good build, good features, good accessories. If you want what the ITM01 has to offer, then this device is appropriately priced and is an easy recommendation within this price bracket.